Hi, Ali. Quick screencast here. So your first question, you ask about this domain answer that was wrong here. And the way that you worded it was actually interesting. You said, because the 4 is in the denominator, shouldn't the domain be all real numbers? Well, if 4 was in the denominator, you're right. If this fraction was x over 4, then the domain would be exactly like you have here. But the denominator is the number on the bottom of the fraction. So in this case, h of x is 4 over x. X is in the denominator, 4 is in the numerator. So because of that reason, we can't divide by 0. X cannot be 0. So you can see the correct answer here ranges from negative infinity to 0, union 0 to infinity, and then these curved brackets means we're not including 0. So it's every real number except 0. And then I believe you had asked about section 1.7. Now part of this was kind of a cheap shot on WebAssign's part. So you selected the correct transformation, the g of x. What's not very obvious is this point is above negative 21 instead of negative 20. You'll notice that the scale here on the x-axis is going by 2. So this is negative 16. That hatch mark would be negative 18, negative 20, negative 22. And if you take a ruler or something, you can see that that dot falls in between those. So it does start at negative 21, which is part of the problem, but there is a bigger problem. So right here you have the domain from negative 20 to 4, and it should be negative 21 to 4. But also importantly is these are closed dots, these two endpoints right here and here. Because of that, we want the square brackets to include those points in the domain, whereas your curved brackets would be appropriate if it was an open dot in these two positions. For your second question on 1.7, first of all, this interval that you have is, it's an interesting way to write. You have negative 20 to negative 16, including negative 16, because you have that square bracket, and then negative 16 to negative 6. So what you really have is all the numbers from negative 20 to negative 6. There's really no need to even do this union the way that you wrote it. You basically have every number from negative 20 to negative 6. And of course, that does need to drop down to negative 21, as I mentioned before. But other than that, you basically had this. Now, WebAssign probably would not accept this format, even though it's technically correct, because you did put it in a non-typical form. But that's a case where if you write me or if you do that on a test, you would just have to call my attention to it, and it would be perfectly correct. Okay, and I think that answers the questions. Feel free to ask me if you have any more.